place that light is afraid to touch, where the monsters beneath your bed and hiding behind your fear refuse to travel. Do you dare? Is your mind capable of the sights you will see? Is your body prepared for the sounds you will hear? Is your spirit up to the challenge of what you soon may feel? If so, have a seat with the seductress of the dark, Sarah Terror, the Sultan of Sadism, Chunky Larry, and the Clown Prince of Fear, Arlie Grind. This is the Ghoul Kids Table.
Greetings, fellow insomniacs, and welcome to the table. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Ghoul Kids Table podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. I'm your host. My name is Chunky Larry. And in the history of horror, there have been very few people that have been able to hold the distinction of saying that they played Leatherface. And on this episode, I have the opportunity to speak with one of those people. This man is a raconteur. He is a do-all, be-all. He has been a wrestler, an MC, an actor, a stuntman, and he has also been a voiceover actor for a very popular television show. And I get to talk to him today. I'm excited. I'm pleased as punch to say, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Big Schwag to the show. Brett Wagner, how you doing, my man?
Thank you, buddy. I'm trying to think of how many guys have actually played Leatherface now.
It's been a couple, but
I think if you include some of the stunt guys, we're talking 8 or 9 guys. But yeah, that's over 50 years. That's a very small percentage. Yeah.
Yeah. So
hold on real quick. Chunky, how much do you weigh? So if we can consider you being chunky or not.
Oh, I'm at 320 right now.
You are more than I am. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm working at it.
No. Yeah. Let me tell you, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 55 and I'm 305 now. And I used to be 350 and I got to go down. So once you get to my age, and I know you're obviously, you're probably a lot younger, 20 years younger than me or something, but you gotta, we want to get you to be lightly skinny, Larry, soon.
No, I'm actually hitting the gym every day. After we're done with this conversation, I'm hitting the gym.
That's where I'm going too, man.
So I'm going from chunky to hunky. That's the goal.
All right. Oh, very nice. That might change. I might change the name of your podcast then.
To what?
I don't know. Hunky Larry's pod.
Yeah, well, you never know, man. I mean,
I'm sorry to throw you off.
No, you're good. You're good, dude. The future's all in the air. But let's talk about the past a little bit.
Sure.
I want to know kind of the series of events that have led you to where you are today. And, I know you grew up in the Valley, and being that close to LA, obviously the dream of a lot of people that go out there is to pursue acting and be a star or a celebrity. Growing up there, though, and seeing all of that stuff, was there any trepidation in getting into that field of work?
As a kid, I never thought about it. I was an athlete. I was very tall. I was, I'm 6'5", even in like the 7th grade. I was just, I got to go to a private school, very I mean, my mom worked at the school, so we weren't, we were upper middle class, but we were definitely not wealthy enough to go to this school. And I got to go to that school because my mom worked there, and there was George Papard, who's a very famous actor, and all these guys, all these kids that were actors that were there. But so it never even dawned on me. Anyways, I just saw I watched their parents on TV all the time, and never gave it a thought in the world until I started. I really started enjoying watching horror movies. About 10, 11 years old, and I think when I got into my teens, I was like, man, I could do this stuff. And I still thought I was going to be an athlete or a pro wrestler. I was a big pro wrestling fan, and when I got into, once I graduated from high school, and I think, I did about a year and a half in college and tried to play football. And I was already working security for bands and working nightclubs starting when I was 17 years old. So I was making money, and college just wasn't for me. And I said, I'll see if I can try this acting thing. So I got into an acting class, and the rest is kind of history. It didn't happen right away, of course. I didn't really start getting any real gigs until later in my 20s. And when I got to be about 30, I start making some money at acting, and it took a while. But yeah, I was just a fan of especially horror movies and TV in general. The Twilight Zone, Night Gallery, Outer Limits, and any of the Romero films. And just when I started to think, I was like, I think I could do this kind of stuff. And I was lazy as well. I was throwing people out of bars, which wasn't that big of a deal
Yeah.
in life. And I was like, well, being an actor can't be that tough. And of course, it's one of the hardest things in the world to do. As people think it's a very easy thing to be an actor, but that's why there's not a lot of actors out there that make a lot of money. And because it's a craft, and it's something you have to really hone your craft at.
So, which came first? Was it the acting or the wrestling?
Wrestling came second. I was 30. I was having a midlife crisis, as I like to tell people, and I'm always one of those guys. I've always done my own thing, and one of those things is always to try something. So I was like, you know what? I think I think I want to get into pro wrestling. And I didn't think I would be a pro wrestler. I wanted to be a wrestling manager like Bobby the Brain Heenan, who was a hero of mine, and all that. The Paul Bears, the Jimmy Harts, and a friend of mine, Rick Drazen, who was a pro wrestler. I said, "Listen, can I manage you?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm doing a show in 2 weeks, and come on down." And we discussed what I'd have to do, and I did it, and I fell in love with the business, and I did it for about 5 years. I probably had two real wrestling matches, and I was no good at it, but I could talk really well, and I ended up for this company, Ultimate Pro Wrestling. Ended up,
UPW, yeah. And Joe
UPW.
and Cena were in UPW, right?
Yeah, John Cena, Samoa Joe. I mean, so many guys had gone through. Luther, who's on AEW right now. We've had
Yeah.
so many people that have gone through UPW, and it was fun to do for 5 years. But again, it's tough to make money at wrestling, right? It's even harder than acting, because there's only so many spots in pro wrestling. I mean,
Yeah.
back then there was a lot of stuff going on. You had WCW, you had Canada, you had Mexico, you had WWF at the time. So, and now again, it's starting to come about, and there's so many indie feds now that
Hmm.
are out there. There's WWE, AEW, ROH, and tons of other companies that are out there. So if
Have you
you're,
checked out into the Indies still, or is that something
oh
you're
yeah, man,
still into?
we go. My wife loves pro wrestling, so we'll go check out some stuff. Vegas has got some good wrestling, and
Yeah. Championship
NXT's gone.
Wrestling of Hollywood,
Yeah,
GCW.
yeah, all this stuff. There's so much good stuff that you could go see. um yeah, we'll check it out once in a while if I have a weekend free. So yeah, I love it. I still love it. You never know who it look at if you get into pro wrestling because you think you're gonna make a gazillion dollars. It's the likelihood is it's that small. It's not. If you love it and you want to try it and you love it, then that's the reason to get into it. Because the guys that make money, you're seeing guys, AEW and some of these other companies will show you guys that they've been in this business a long time, and they've paid their dues, and finally they're getting a little shot at making some dough and getting on TV. But there's thousands and thousands of other guys you'll never ever hear about unless you go to your local VFW hall or something and see someone wrestle, and they're doing it just for the love of it. They're not doing it to make money. So
Yeah, absolutely. I find it really interesting, especially the way that you described professional wrestling. The same could be said for acting. So that's two different avenues that you just said fuck it and pursued whimsy, and
Yeah.
it has afforded you a couple of really cool opportunities. I want to talk a little bit about your MCing because I think that that's really interesting. You've done Sturgis, and
Oh yeah.
so how did all that come about?
So, I think I'm gonna. So gosh, I had never even really talked about this, but when I was a kid, we had a park, Pettit Park. That's where I would go. It was, maybe 15-minute walk from my house where I grew up in the valley, and me and my best friend would go there. He was the big stoner, would go hang out with all the stoner kids, and I would play basketball because I was a jock, and but they had a carnival there once a year, and I used to love watching, seeing these guys, $2, $2, get in here, take the ball, hit this, and the guy said, I got to go to the bathroom. Hey kid, come here. So I was hanging out. He said, watch my booth for real quick. So I was like, well, I was young. I don't know how to, I was 12 years old and I was watching these guys and I started doing, all right, step up, step up. And I started making fun of people and they're like, what? And I'm like, come on over here, Chunky, you big son of a gun, get over here. And, and then I was like, wow, that was pretty fun. The guy came back and I was just like, I can talk, right? So I was
Yeah.
like, man. So when Monster Garage came about, I was doing the voice of this TV show, Monster Garage, and I started calling, motorcycle events and car shows and saying, hey, do you know who I am? I would love to come in and sign autographs and come down to your show. And they're like, I don't know who you are. I said, well, ask your kid,
Yeah.
And the kid would go, that's the big swag. He's on Monster Garage. And I just started doing that, right? I go to these shows and they go, well, can you go get on the microphone? And I would be like, yeah, let me see what I can do. And over the course of, 20, 25 years of doing different shows, I just, I can get up on a microphone and entertain 100,000 people or entertain, 5,000, 500 people. So it
You
just came about that. Yeah.
you definitely have like an energy about you. I've watched a couple of the promos you've done for upcoming shows that you're going to be
Yeah.
at, and it's big, it's boisterous, it's kind of
Yeah.
over the top, and for a lot of people, it's hard to kind of tap into that. Was
Sure.
that always a thing for you, or
Yeah. I don't know if it was, I was this tall, very lanky kid. As I said, I was like 6'5" in the seventh grade, and you got bullied, got made fun of, and I don't know if that was just something that, well, if I can be the loudest or the funniest guy in the group, maybe people won't make fun of me, and maybe that's where it came out. But I look at you. I've watched a lot of your interviews as of late,
yeah,
and I can say to you, you and I could get up on stage, and they said, hey, we got to stall and entertain these people for 10 minutes, or you and I could do it, right?
yeah,
We just
for
pick up the
sure.
mic and go. And it's the same when I'm working up on a stage, whether it's Sturgis or whatnot. They can say, hey, we have Ryan Hurst. So I was working Sturgis and Ryan Hurst on Sons of Anarchy.
Mhm.
Was
Oh,
there, and I got to do an interview with him up on stage, which is simple. I may not know what just how you doing, Ryan? It's just a simple thing to grab a microphone and start talking, or you're telling folks what's coming up, and if you can do it in a loud and boisterous way, which I did with my voice on Monster Garage,
mhm.
which was really my pro wrestling kind of voice and how I did things in the pro wrestling. So you kind of stick
Basically
with
just
that.
cutting a promo.
You're just cutting a promo, right?
Yeah,
And you're talking about what's going on, and you're picking someone out of the crowd to make fun of them, or you see somebody, and you know, um, you just look at. Sometimes you can yell, make stuff up. Let's say you're entertaining 1,000 people at Sturgis. Easy Rider Saloon was one I worked for a while, and I'll be there for 11 days, and you're introducing bands. But when you got a crowd there, you just, hey, look who's just, I'll pick someone that looks like somebody, and I'll just say, look at it. It's, oh my gosh, The Rock is in the crowd. Dwayne Johnson, everybody's looking around. I'm like, come on up here, Dwayne. He's busy, folks. All right, I got it. Don't worry about it. So it's just talking. So emceeing is just being able to get out there and cut some promos, really, and talk about what's going on, drink specials, whatever, who's coming up, what band's going to be there. So, and it makes it a little easier when I'm trying to get that gig, right?
Hmm.
So they go, well, why do I want to bring? Yeah, I know who you are. You were on this, but I do so much more for it. I'll do their radio interviews. I'll cut promos for them for the radio spots. I'll go do the morning, like, do you want someone to go do the local radio news in the morning on TV, whatever it is? And so if, I'll do all of that, which a lot of celebrities won't do. They're like, hey, I'm there for 2 hours, I'm signing, pay me, and that's it. And then they're out the door.
Yeah.
I'd rather have them go, yeah, we could pay that guy $10,000 to come in, or we could pay Schwag a couple $1,000 to come in, and he'll do everything for us, and and he won't gripe or bitch or moan.
And so that leads me to a topic that I definitely want to talk about is the convention circuit. And I've worked a couple of the conventions. I'm nowhere near your level or anything like that, but I've noticed that there's different levels of personality with people that work these conventions, people that are going and appearing. Some people fucking hate interacting with the audience. And then there's people that just genuinely glow and like, even like, say for example, they weren't in like a ton of shit. People just gravitate towards their table because of their personality.
Sure.
Is there anybody that you've interacted with that maybe you didn't know prior to a convention that you were just like, holy shit, this dude is rad?
I mean, I've gotten to work a whole bunch of shows with Bill Moseley,
Mm-hmm.
and
He's a chill dude.
Bill Moseley is one of the greatest guys. And I've also said this, that if you are new to the convention circuit and you're a celeb or a guest coming in, if you watch someone like that, if you watch someone like Doug Jones, Bill Moseley shakes. I forget what he told me when we were up in Canada. It was the end of last year in November, and he's like, I'm almost on my 25,000 handshake, but he'll shake hands with everybody. He makes sure you have a good experience. And Doug Jones will hug, he's the hugger. He hugs everybody. Doesn't matter. Give me a hug, bring it in for a hug. I just did a convention with Mark Burnham and Bob Elmore, and Mark, Bob Elmore from Chainsaw 2, and Mark
Yeah,
Burnham from
murderous
the
row
new
of Leatherface.
Netflix,
Yeah.
the new, Leatherface. And you watch these guys, and they are so gracious and humble. And sometimes I remember doing some conventions 10 years ago where I don't have anybody in line, and I'm just like, and you just get so frustrated.
Yeah.
And I hate having to, and I think I hate having to try to entice someone to come over and sell them an autograph, and that's the wrong thing to do. If someone
Yeah.
wants to come over and BS with you, you just got to go, hey, all right, I know they're not going to buy anything,
Yeah.
which is fine, but I may make a fan, I may make a friend, and down the road, I've always said that. I'll tell you what, Jesse James from Monster Garage, which I was the voice of,
Mm.
he told me a long time ago, when I go do shows like that. So that's a different story. When I'm doing car shows or bike shows, I'm getting paid to be there, right? I bring 500 to 1,000 free pictures. Jesse said, don't sell those pictures when you go to those things. Don't just hand them out to people. He said, don't sell them, And I was like, that's probably a smart idea, right? So if I hand someone a picture and they're like, oh, wow, how much is it? Oh, that's nothing. It's the difference between a horror sci-fi Comic-Con convention and then going and doing a bike show, doing something where you're already paid to be there. You don't need, I'm already paid to be there. I don't need to make an extra dollar trying to sell someone my picture. I'd rather just, he said, don't sell it, hand it out to these people. They will be grateful, in which they are. Because,
Mm.
down the road, if I'm hosting another show, I want them to remember, hey, that guy was a cool guy. Maybe they'll watch the show. Or maybe if I ever get shirts like in the Hot Topic or something, they'll go, oh, the swag was really good. And, you don't need to, when you get greedy, it shows. And we all know people that you can watch TV and you go see someone that's making millions and millions of dollars, and then you go to a show and they're still trying to charge for autographs. I'm like, man, you already made millions of dollars. You should be signing until your fingers are bleeding, and then be grateful that those people are there to say hello to you.
So I want to double back to Jesse and Monster Garage. How did
Yeah.
that come to be?
So our executive producer, so when I got into pro wrestling, I did a documentary for Discovery Channel called Pro Wrestling. I think it was Pro Wrestling School.
Mhm.
John Cena's in it, I'm in it, and a couple other guys are in it. And that director, the producer was named Tom Beers, Thom, Tom Beers. And Tom Beers was doing a lot of documentaries for stuff and on Discovery Channel. And he was such a nice guy to me. And I remembered, and I'm like, man, I'm going to stay his friend because something's going to come along one of these days. And he's going to go, Schwag, I need you,
Yeah.
or you're good for something for me. And he did. He said, hey, I got this new show called Monster Garage. And could you do your wrestling voice for me for, different things on it? And I said, I would love to. And that's how that all came about. Now Tom Beers went on to do Ice Road Truckers, Deadliest Catch. Every blue collar show that you can think of that's been on TV, he has been created. And it was a great opportunity. It was Monster Garage was so hot.
Yeah.
We were we were really the first build show, and then when you have 6 or 7 or 8 million people watching a week, and then those things rerun. Now, if that would have been a union show, I'd be a gazillionaire right now. But it is what it is. It was a great experience. We came back a couple years ago.
So that
And did
doesn't constitute a SAG?
no, it's not SAG. I would have been great, believe me. The amount of I probably did 92 episodes of that, and it ran. It's
It's
what they were
running to
running
this
that.
day.
Yeah, well, it's still running. Listen,
Yeah.
I'd be on. I would have my own island. I would be. You know, I would be because look, it's the same as you do commercials, right? People think, well, you have to be in front of the camera on a commercial. No, you don't. Your voice.
Huh.
I get paid if I'm the voice at Taco Bell, or I'll give you an example. The guy that plays Jack in a Box, right?
Yeah,
His
yeah,
voice.
yeah.
That guy's getting paid just as much as the actor whose face is seen, if not more.
No,
So
yeah.
it's voiceovers, it's a tough racket. There's a bunch of people that are very good at it that get paid a lot of money that you'll hear their voice. You go, I know that voice. And it's a very tough thing. It's even tougher than getting a on-camera acting gig because especially during COVID, there was a lot of competition. People figured nothing's going on. Let me see what I can do. And it's kind of cheap to get your system set up and
Yeah.
then get an agent. And then you start auditioning from home and don't have to go anywhere. So a lot of competition.
And that is definitely something that I think is a conversation to be brought up, as well as, actors that are still just, gig to gig. When COVID happens, that throws a real wrench, and
Man.
as well as like conventions, all of that stuff gets thrown up in the air. What is your pivot for that?
Well, I was very lucky that I'm the voice of a lawnmower company called Bad Boy Mowers in Arkansas for 20 years. So I still was making a paycheck every month. And even during COVID, people had to buy lawnmowers. It still rained and so I got very lucky and very blessed to have that gig. So I'm always trying to do everything there is. It doesn't matter if you're going to be See, I consider myself an entertainer, right? If I'm just an actor, I'd be in deep trouble, because it's just acting's tough. There's not, so you got to do everything. And whether it's podcasts, whether it's hosting radio, where there's a will, there's a way. And I tend to do everything. I never say no, right? So
Oh,
I didn't think I wasn't in the best of shape to get into pro wrestling, but I wanted to do it. And I took a chance and it worked. And I had good experiences. I've hosted a podcast. I'm doing a new one now called "Shooting the Shiz" with DK and the Schwag, my buddy John Henderson, and we enjoy doing it. I don't know if we'll ever make money in it, but we're trying it. I've
yeah.
hosted a regular radio show called Wrestling 101 where I had Samoa Joe and John Cena and all these guys on before they were very famous. And
Nice.
you do everything you can because you never know Otherwise, I mean, I don't know what else I could go back to throwing people at bars and doing bodyguard work, but I really don't want to do that. And, so it's a very smart thing when people tell you get an education.
Yeah.
So because you have something to fall back on,
Yeah.
something to really, and, unfortunate for me, I'm a BSer and I've married smart. My wife works in the entertainment business as an accountant and for Warner Brothers and does so either very well or have a whole bunch of things that you can fall back on and always try new things. That's my best advice.
And let's talk a little bit about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre because we
Sure.
are on the 20th anniversary of the film, and you were known as the Lost Leatherface or the Kemper Kill Leatherface. So,
Yes.
explain that story for me because
So I got cast as
mm,
Leatherface, which was a huge deal for me. I remember I called 1,000 people. The first call I made was to R.A. Mihailoff, who's a buddy of mine from Texas Chainsaw 3,
yeah,
Leatherface,
yeah,
and it was great. I went out there. I was really only there for a week. We filmed a little bit on the first day, and then the second day was the big day. And unfortunately, I got heat stroke wearing the costume, and in the middle of shooting that day, and I went outside and had to drink like 7 Gatorades. But when you get heat stroke and your body's deprived of water, you're dehydrated. My muscles and my back tensed up, so
mm,
I had to finish dragging him in the house. We didn't have my stunt double there that day, which would have probably saved me, and I would have gone on to do two movies and finish that one at least. Someone had a skateboard, so we threw Eric Balfour. It's not that he's a heavy guy; he was just long and lanky. And now at this
awkward.
point, yeah, and at this point, I'm dehydrated. My back's killing me, and I'm dragging him. And then we put him on a skateboard, which helped. And then I had to slam that door shut, and that door was some of the worst pain of my life. It was a huge, heavy door. But that night, went to the hospital, and there's really nothing they can do. They gave me an electro stim thing for my back and some ibuprofen and some heavy duty narcotics, which helped. But I mean, the producer, I forget his name, someone from Platinum Dunes, said, "What's the bottom line?" I said, it's going to be a week at least. And when you have a $17 million movie and you're not a big name actor,
And you're
they're not going to
playing one
wait.
of the main names of the
Yeah, so they
of,
can't. Yeah, they
yeah.
cannot. They can't wait. So, I remember a couple days later, then there was a knock at my door, and they brought in, Andrew Bernarski, who had worked with them, I believe, Michael Bay on Pearl Harbor. So,
Mm.
and Andrew and I got sent home, which was a tough pill to swallow. But I've obviously for years I didn't talk about it. And, I didn't want to talk about it, but a couple of my friends are like, you know what, as I say, I was Leatherface for a week, and the people called me the Lost Leatherface. So I was like, all right, you know what, I'll embrace it. And there's a lot of conventions that you still, there's guys that have been in movies less time than I have, and they've been doing conventions for 30, 40 years, and I enjoy going and doing them. And so we're hustling, and I got Horror Hound Weekend coming up in Cincinnati soon, so that's going to be exciting. And there's a lot of conventions I'm doing this year, so it's a good opportunity to get out and meet folks and sign some pictures and have a good time.
And you, aside from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you were also a part of another remake that I absolutely fucking adore, and that is The Crazies. I think that is, in terms of remakes, those are two movies that I feel live up to the
Oh yeah.
expectations of what those films are supposed to be and accentuate. I would say it's those two, the Evil Dead remake and the
Oh
Hills
yeah.
Have Eyes remake. But you're in two of those four that I just mentioned, so
Yeah.
that's pretty impressive. And
Listen, the Crazies was awesome. I mean, Brett Geisner, our director. I remember when I went in. John Papsadera is a huge casting director in LA, And I was like, I don't know what this thing is, and I acted like I was some kind of zombie. I forgot that George Romero, George Romero's The Crazies was more of a political thing,
Yeah.
and I remember I was like, oh, this is a zombie, and I remember my audition was like, I'm at a payphone and I'm on a phone and I turn around and I'm acting like this, Walking Dead kind of zombie. And then I get outside and I'm like, wait a minute, what did I just do? That was the wrong thing to do because that's not what they're looking for. And I was just like, the crazies was, but I got a call a couple of weeks later and said, yeah, they like you. So you're booked. And that was it's still today one of my, if I would have finished Texas Chainsaw Massacre, maybe I would say differently and say that was my favorite movie. But The Crazies was so fun to do. Met a lot of good friends, worked with a lot of people. Robert Hall, and Almost Human, uh, special effects and FX guys, and that was great. And Toby Sells, a guy out of Atlanta who's a makeup guy, for movies, and it was so cool to work on that stuff, and was great. And getting to work with Timothy Oliphant, big fight scene with him, and getting lit on fire.
So that
doing
was you that got lit on fire.
Well, there's two of us. This my stunt double on that one and me, but yeah, I did a couple of those burns, so it's pretty gnarly. I don't know if I would have I guess I could do. I was put on the spot. So here's the true story, right? So my buddy Chris Carnell he's not with us anymore. He passed away. He was My Bloody Valentine 3D. He was the miner.
Okay.
But very, very famous stunt guy. And they came up to me and said, because I think at the point my stunt double was new and they wanted to use me and they said, listen, you do a burn. And I said, yeah. And I was like, I've never, they walked away. And then Chris was like, you ever done a burn? And I said, no. So then he had a decision, to go. So in a split second, I could see him thinking and we were getting along good. And, I was doing great on my fight scenes and everything else. And he was such a nice guy. He said, all right, let me tell you what's going to happen. And he told me what to do and what's going to happen. And then the fire guy came over and he says, all right, you ready? Okay. And that was one of the scariest things I've ever done in my life, but it was great to do. And I would do it again now that I've had the experience, but burns are a dangerous thing. I mean, you can talk to Kane Hodder about that and read some of his stories on, the things that can go bad about when you're doing burns. And, but I was very lucky. I got to do it. And what a great movie. I love that movie. Got me the cover of Fangoria magazine. So, as a horror fan, not as an actor, not as anything else, but as a horror fan, I mean, that's like the holy grail to be on the cover of Fangoria.
That's like your Academy Award, basically.
Bam. Now you've done it once, though. You got to do it again. So that's before I die. I got to get into something that we can get on the cover again.
So what are we looking at? What are we trying to do to get ourselves back on the cover of Fangoria?
Oh man, I mean, it's just
in the works.
There's a lot of I mean, it's just acting, right? So you got to get the acting gigs and hopefully, Terrifier 3 or something. Who knows? I mean, I would love to. Those guys are killing it, and but there's so many. I'll do some independent movies. I love doing working period, right? So
of course,
as I've been saying over the last couple of interviews we do, there's so many guys out there that are doing these very smart independent movies that are scary horror, and I'm lucky enough to be a part of some of them. And some of these guys that are doing these independent films are going to be the next. They'll be the next big directors out there that are getting a lot of money to do some big $5 million movies. So you never know. You never know. In Hollywood, it's like this, right? You can go in, and when you go in for auditions, you don't be rude to anybody. The lady answering the phones in that office, don't be rude to her, because in a year she could be the one who's the casting director. So you never know who's who, and just always be humble and be gracious. Yes, sweetie?
Yeah, Everything Everywhere. Winning every award.
Yeah.
Independent film.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everything Everywhere was an independent film, winning every single award. So you never know who's who.
Smart.
You never know. Yeah, my wife is.
She's smart. I like her.
Yeah. So you never know who's who and what director is going to be the next big thing. What lady answering the phone at that office is going to be. And I've known a couple people that used to answer phones that are now running, Paramount Pictures. So I mean, it's just, you got to be humble in this business, and you got to keep reinventing yourself. Obviously, I'm a lot older now, and I try not to I'll do some fight scenes, but I won't get. I'm not falling out of cars or off of horses or anything
Or
like that. So
getting lit on fire.
I'll get lit on fire.
Okay, you'll still do that.
Yeah, I'll get lit on fire. That would be awesome to do that again.
You're saying that in front of your wife right now. I'm just putting that out there, honey.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get lit on fire.
Yeah. Now listen, I hosted a drag racing show for 6 years called Pastime, and I had never drag raced before, and people used to give me grief about you're hosting a show, and I'm like, well, you can host a show. It doesn't mean I just have to. I have to know how to host a show and guide the show. It doesn't mean I have to drag race, but I got so much grief about it that a good friend of mine, Glenn Novakowski up in Canada, said, why don't you come race for me? I said, I don't know how to race. He's like, especially in a big dragster. And he goes, I'll send you to school. So I went to this Frank Hawley's drag racing school, very awesome guy that teaches drag racing to folks, and learned to drag race. And, that was the first time I was going up to do some racing in Canada. I remember I brought my wife, and I went to Legal Zoom and did a will just in case. But,
it's terrifying.
if something goes wrong, at least
she's covered. Yeah.
When they do the movie of the week, the MOW of the Big Schwag, maybe make sure she gets her cut.
Very nice. So Schwag, please toss out some places that people can find you, and conventions that you've got coming up.
Yeah, man, we got a lot. Got Horror Hound weekend coming up. Morgan Cripp convention, which is going to be in Albuquerque. I mean, Carolina Fear Fest. I think in Raleigh, Midwest Monster Fest, Denver Crypticon. God, I know I'm forgetting a few, but there's a lot this year I'm doing. I'm very excited to be. I'll be doing Creep IE Con, which is a new giant, really, really, really good convention in California, which is tough. California is tough to have conventions. And then, of course, Frightmare in the Falls. I'll be doing that again in Halloween weekend. And there's a few other, but, I'm on, The Big Schwag on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook, and you can get a hold of me that way. For all you directors that need a big bruiser in your movie, or motorcycle shows, car shows, I'm easy to get a hold of.
Perfect. And if you guys are here just because of the Big Schwag, I don't blame you, but you've enjoyed the conversation, you want to find out more, you can do that in a couple of different ways. You can start by liking us on Facebook, facebook.com/Ghoul Kids Table, following us on Twitter @Ghoul Kids Table, at Instagram @Ghoul or GKT Podcast, and on TikToks it's Ghoul_kids_table.
Now I got a question for you.
Shoot.
Who are some of your upcoming guests?
Remains to be seen.
Okay, all right.
But that is going to do it for us, you guys. So for the Big Schwag and for myself, again, my name is Chunky. This has been another episode of the Ghoul Kids Table podcast, and there's always a seat waiting for you here at the table. Take care, guys.